Hello friends, welcome to Dr. Rajkumar's Learning App. Today we are going to discuss about urban cooperative banks. So before going for the urban cooperative banks, we will just see what are these banks. Bank is nothing but an intermediary. It is an intermediary between the depositor and the person who takes the loans from these banks or the intermediaries. So depositor will keep his money in this bank and the bank will lend the money to the person who needs it in the form of loans. So these are actually the intermediaries. So now what is the difference between cooperative banks and commercial banks? So the cooperative banks, they mostly lend for the agriculture or rural industry as well as the small industries which are located in the urban areas. Secondly, they are registered under Cooperative Societies Act of 1965. And thirdly, they run on no profit, no loss basis. Their motive is not to earn profit but to help the people for the welfare of the people. So they run on the no profit, no loss basis. So what are these commercial banks? Commercial banks are the banks which provide their services to the individuals and business for the profit. So these are the banks which are not established for the welfare of the people. Yeah, they have some basic objective of welfare, but their main motive is to earn the profit. So they provide most of the services to the individuals as well as business or the large industries. So they are regulated by the Banking Regulation Act of 1949 and their motive is profit oriented. So now we will come to about the history of the urban cooperative banks. Now these urban cooperative banks, they are located in urban and semi-urban areas. So till 1996 they were not allowed to lend for agriculture purposes, but after 1996 now this urban cooperative banks, they are allowed to lend for the agriculture purposes. So their origin can be traced in the 19th century. These cooperative banks, they were successful in Britain and Germany. So by seeing the success of these banks, cooperative societies were established in India. Now what are the features of the urban cooperative banks? These banks generally are located in urban and semi-urban areas. They might be located in large cities just like Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai, etc., as well as semi-urban areas just like small towns. Now they work on the cooperation principle. What do you mean by cooperation principle? Here the customers, they will come together and they will own a bank. Cooperative banks are the banks which are owned by the consumer themselves or the customers themselves. So they work on the cooperation principle. So they are established to help themselves. So mutual help is one of the basic features of the urban cooperative banks which are established to help themselves. So here again, the decisions which are taken in the urban cooperative banks, they are on the principle of democracy. What do you mean by democracy? Here one person will have a single vote, but generally in the commercial banks what we see is that a person having more number of shares will having more number of vote, or the weightage for his vote will be more than the other persons. Now here the urban cooperative banks, they have open membership. Open membership means anyone can come and join the urban cooperative banks. There are no limits that who can join a urban cooperative bank. A person can be rich or poor, he can come and join these banks. So what are the issues with urban cooperative? So first of all, they are struggling to survive. Recently we have seen that Punjab and Maharashtra cooperative bank fiasco. So what was the issue here? The Punjab and Maharashtra cooperative bank came under scanner because of the fraud cases which were taken place in the banks. Now here the irregularities in the lending was taken place. So this bank, PMC bank, it has offered loan only to a single industry up to 6,500 crore. So its valuation was, its capital was 11,000 crore, and out of that 6,500 crore it was given to a single company. So this was the irregularities in the lending. So the NPAs of the Punjab and Maharashtra cooperative banks started to increase. So RBI had put some restrictions on these banks. Secondly, there are emerging challenges to urban cooperative banks. What are the emerging challenges? Means there are increasing microfinance institutes, there are fintech companies or the financial technological companies or the payment gateways just like Google Pay or Phone Pay. There are social platforms and e-commerce companies and non-banking financial companies. So these different institutes or the different companies, they are increasing the competition to the urban cooperative banks, and they are emerging as the challenges to urban cooperative banks. Now the third issue is sinking balance sheet. Here the loans are more and the deposits are less. So urban cooperative banks are facing with the large number of NPAs. So the fourth issue is large share of rural cooperatives. 60% of cooperative banks, they are present in the rural areas. So most of the customer base, it is present in the rural areas. Now the urban cooperative banks are lending less to the agriculture sector. So they are lending more to the industries or the business. Now what is the problem here? Now the problem is these industries or businesses, they are failing, and so these industries or business, they are not able to repay the loan of the urban cooperative banks. So this is also one of the challenges which urban cooperative banks, they are facing. Now declining number of urban cooperative banks after liberalization policy. Now after liberalization policy, many private sector banks, they emerged in the economy. So the cooperative banks were facing again the challenges from these private sector banks. So another issue was the dual control. Now what do you mean by dual control? So these urban cooperative banks were regulated by two different organizations or two different regulators. One was state registrar and second was RBI. Whatever the financial issues were there, it was regulated by RBI, and the day-to-day administration, it was regulated by state registrar. So there was a dual control of the urban cooperative banks. Now another challenge which urban cooperative banks recently is facing, that is the frauds and COVID, like the pandemic. These are affecting the assets or the quality of the assets of the urban cooperative bank. Now recently we have seen that many people, they're making the frauds in the banks. They're taking the loan and they are not paying the loans, or they are not repaying the loans back to the banks. Now COVID has impacted many of the industries and business in the market. Now failure of these industries and businesses, again it is affecting the assets of the banks. Now because of this, they are not able to repay the loans taken from these cooperative banks, and the NPAs are increasing of the urban cooperative banks. And the last most important issue which the urban cooperative banks is facing, it is the political interference. Now the political interference is largely seen in the cooperative banks. So these banks are not able to take the proper decisions, they are not able to run in a better way. Now recently RBI has released a report of the expert committee on primary urban cooperative banks. Now this committee was headed by former RBI Deputy Governor N. Vishwanathan. So this committee's mandate was to examine the issues faced by urban cooperative banks and to provide a roadmap to strengthen the sector, that is urban cooperative banks. How to strengthen these urban cooperative banks, that was the mandate of this committee. Now the committee has given some recommendations to strengthen the urban cooperative banks. The first recommendation it has given is the mandatory merger. The urban cooperative banks which are not performing well or which are in the weak condition, they have to be merged mandatorily. So it's the compulsion on these urban cooperative banks to merge. So the second recommendation was to divide the urban cooperative banks in 4 tiers. So it will be dividing the urban cooperative banks into four different tiers. First will be the banks up to the capital of 100 crores. Second, banks will be having the capital from 100 crore to 1000 crore. Third will be 1000 crore to 10,000 crore. And the fourth tier will be, or the fourth level will be, the urban cooperative banks having assets more than, or the capital more than 10,000 crore. So this was the division recommended by the panel. Now the third most important recommendation of the panel was to keep the capital to risk weighted ratio to 9:15%. So they are given one range in which the minimum capital to risk weighted ratio of these cooperative banks has to be maintained. Now the panel has also recommended to establish one umbrella organization to oversee the urban cooperative banks. Now there will be an umbrella organization which will oversee the different urban cooperative banks. Now what is the main function of this urban cooperative banks is to raise the capital from the market. So it will be functioning just like non-banking financial companies, and it will be able to raise capitals from the market. So it can help to raise the capital through the share markets or by issuing the bonds. So after a certain period of time, if that umbrella organization is able to work successfully, it can be converted into a universal bank. So these were certain recommendations given by the panel. So now what's the government's stand, or what government is planning to regulate these urban cooperative banks? Now recently government has planned to bring the amendments to Banking Regulation Act of 1949. Through this amendment, government wants to regulate the urban cooperative banks under the Banking Regulation Act. So here the RBI will get the control to regulate the urban cooperative banks. Now the second important reform will be the appointment of CEO. Now for the appointment of the CEO of urban cooperative banks, RBI's permission will be required. So RBI will give the permission to appoint a certain person as a CEO of urban cooperative banks. Again, the managers or the management will be only appointed if they had a certain qualifications to manage the urban cooperative banks. If they are not having the qualifications, they will not be appointed in the management of the urban cooperative banks. Now the audit of these banks will be as per the RBI guidelines. RBI will frame certain guidelines in which the audits of the urban cooperative banks will be done. And the last point is, through the amendments in the Banking Regulation Act, RBI will be able to take the liquidation process of the banks. So RBI will take the control of the liquidation of urban cooperative banks in this hand. So these are the steps which government is right now taking by amending Banking Regulation Act of 1949. Thanks for watching the video. Thank you.